Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
It's a great pleasure to welcome to the program now Chair of Regional Cities New South Wales, Matthew Dickerson. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you going there?
Very well. I understand that you're leading a group of country mayors through the region up on the north of New South Wales, Tweed Heads and Lismore.
I've just returned from that particular tour, so I just flew back in this morning from a couple of days up there. And it's really interesting because we normally meet with Regional Cities New South Wales, and for a bit of background, that's an alliance of 15 regional cities around the state. So it includes places like Bathurst, Orange and Dubbo here in the middle of the state, and up as far as Tweed and Lismore, and then down as far as Albury and Wagga. And so we gather at Parliament House every 3 months and talk about a range of issues. We might be lobbying government, for example. We might be solving common problems that we've got. But the cities often have many things in common. As much as we like to say that each individual city is better than any of the other ones, when you sit back and peel it back, you've got a lot of things in common. But it was suggested a couple of meetings ago that we should get out to some site visits. And I love the idea of that. It does take a bit more time to do it, but there's nothing like seeing things on the ground. And when we talked about that and we got some agreement around the table, the obvious place to go first was up to Tweed and Lismore, just because of the troubles that Lismore in particular has had with flooding over the last year or so, and just looking at the issues firsthand and some of the solutions or possible solutions to some of those problems. So they were the first two cities we visited on our site visit tour.
Yeah. Are they rebuilding in the same place? I mean, there were some conversations about moving to higher ground.
Correct, and there's a whole range of things around a buyback, and I did see the mayor a couple of weeks ago, Steve Krieg's the mayor of Lismore. I saw him and he was visibly upset when I saw him, and I actually said, what's happening? You obviously look upset. And he just received the news from the state government about where the buyback program was going. Now, in the initial buyback discussions, the state government was talking about buying back a range of houses. They'd drawn some lines on a map and houses that had been affected and severely affected by the flooding last year, and they thought there was a fairly good indication that these were the houses that were being bought back. But it had been scaled back significantly. So all that poor old Steve had over the last few hours since when I saw him was phone call after phone call from various residents that were in the area that they thought were being bought back, but now were not being bought back. And it takes its toll, because from a mayor's perspective, the really tough part there is that he doesn't actually have control. It's the state government that's actually choosing how much money is being allocated and where those lines on the map are. But people come to their local mayor to get help. So he was visibly upset by that. And it was actually interesting driving around looking at some of the locations that we talked about, and areas that were inundated, houses that were under a couple of metres of water, houses that had people sitting on roofs. Those people weren't able to get buybacks, but someone 50 metres up the road was part of the buyback. So it's hard to understand some of those processes. So the building, the rebuilding process is not in full swing yet, because you've got a lot of places that they're not going to rebuild.
Issues that occur in our regional city, we often hear about them occurring in others. They're reverberated across the regions. Housing stress. That's one we've heard headlines in the media about, that part of the world facing that, and we know that we're facing that here. Did that come up?
Absolutely right. It's something that comes up at every meeting of regional cities. All of those 15 cities in our alliance are all very popular places to move to. People in Sydney want to get out of Sydney and want to get out to some places that have got great facilities like we have in regional cities. So that definitely is something that comes up on a regular basis. We want more people moving out. Those people want to move out, but they look at where to go and they just can't find somewhere to live. And in particular, when you look at places like Tweed and Lismore, they've got an additional problem. They've already got a housing shortage. They've got people who want to move to those locations, but now they're closing down some of the houses. They're buying back those houses, and those houses obviously will no longer exist. So they've even got a bigger problem in that they're reducing the amount of housing stock they've got available when everyone else is trying to increase it. So that is an ongoing problem for regional cities. It's a good problem to have, let me say, because when we've got this housing shortage, it means that people want to be in our cities. It's better than the reverse, saying that no one wants to be in our cities and we've got too much housing stock. So it's a problem to solve, but I'd rather this problem than the opposite.
And do you welcome the Regional Australia Institute's the biggest ever recruitment drive, their campaign Move to More.
Yeah, look, we have actually talked about RAI, and we've had discussions with the CEO, Liz, from RAI, and we're actually having her coming along to our next meeting. One of the things that's really important there is that there is a level of ignorance, and I say that in the nicest possible way, but a level of ignorance in Sydney, for example, not really understanding what regional cities have to offer. Now, the RAI program is focused on Australia-wide, but we still support that concept because one of the things is if we can educate people, whether it be in Sydney or Melbourne or Brisbane, if we can educate people that regional cities have got a lot to offer and they should have a look at these cities, then we can guarantee that long-term growth. The housing problem is a problem today. We believe we can solve that problem over time, but we want to have people still wanting to move to regional locations.
It's about busting some of those myths, I suppose, which they do really well. For those that want to have a look at that, it's called movetomore.com.au. All right, well, it's fantastic that you're back in the region and had a successful tour. It's always great catching up with you.
Thank you very much, and it is great catching up, but I don't want to thank both Tweed and Lismore because they did do a great job presenting their cities and their problems. It was a warts and all visit, their problems, their issues and their solutions as they're going forward, but it was really good to get around and have a look at those firsthand.
Thanks, Matthew. See ya.
Thanks,
Have
Jack.
a good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye. Matthew Dickerson there, Chair of Regional Cities in New South Wales, joining us fresh from a visit to Lismore and Tweed Heads with a range of country mayors.
Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.